everybody. Welcome to Scorpio and Jackals at the Movies right here on YouTube. And we're going to have a fantastic lineup for you guys for the very first debut show of our movie review. And right before we get to that, I want to really announce to everybody who's watching for the first time to please hit the subscribe button, notification, give us a thumbs up if you like what we talk about. It's very important for the algorithms that you guys participate. Comments below on what we talk about and what we discuss, because these movies, it's meant for everybody to enjoy, but everybody has their own perspective on these things, and it's all subjective. Now, me and Scorpio here go a long time, and we are movie fanatics, so this is going to be a very, very good one. First movie on the lineup tonight is going to be the one and only, the one that fans and friends of ours have been waiting for a very long time. Snyder Cut. You know what I'm talking about? That's right. The Justice League Zack Snyder Cut. And man, this movie has been in the wings for years, literally, waiting for Zack Snyder to come back and finish the edit. And he finally got the job done. And it wasn't theatrical, but it was something that, well, yeah, I think it blew a lot of people's expectations. So let's take a look at the clip.
So, the Justice League was one of the first movies to come out this year, and I'm not gonna lie, I mostly just watched it because it was there. My quick history on this: Man of Steel, I thought was a better movie than some people gave it credit for, but not the Superman anyone was looking for. Batman vs Superman came off more like just a music video more than a movie, and after the kind of C minus, paint color by numbers Justice League version that came out, I was pretty much done with anything Zack Snyder touched as far as superheroes. I had zero interest in this, but the Snyder Cut was so loud. Again, almost as I watched just so I could talk about it later, basically. But where's my fork and my big old bowl of crow here? Because I must say, I'm a believer. After this, his vision was definitely a lot different than the original, and a massive improvement on what came out first. A lot said about the nearly 4-hour runtime on this thing, but if you really do enjoy your superhero movies and your superpowers, those hours are actually pretty darn well spent. This thing really does tell an epic, spanning superhero story. Would have made a great, intro for all these characters that they did bring into it. But, more than anything else, what I got to say is Zack Snyder, he really, really gets the physicality of heroes. They come off. Everything they do is larger than life, hard hitting. These were superheroes brought to life. 4 hours very well spent.
I really did not like what Joss Whedon did with Justice League, and I will say that after watching the 4-hour cut a couple times, because I fell asleep a couple times in the beginning, it's a very long movie. But I will say, once I got through the entire thing, it is a better movie than the Justice League we got theatrically. I always wondered, once I saw it, I started wondering more. But I was wondering, why didn't they go theatrical with this? And then I saw it and I was like, oh, well, now I understand, because it's a really long movie. And it really plays like a matinee where you have it in sections. And it's interesting the way they did it. I am, a little bit more open to them doing maybe more sequels in this thing. Maybe a Justice League 2 with Zack Snyder. Now, it's amazing that the way technology has changed from when we were young. Now you have all these, streaming platforms like HBO Max, so you could actually have this play out longer, and you can enjoy, a little bit more of the storyline. So it's not as rushed, which I think was what was missing in the Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. They felt a little too rushed for me. I didn't really enjoy the cast as much, and I still don't like the cast too much. With that's because it's the same cast. But I will say this though, I do like what he did with Superman a whole lot more than what we got with the Joss Whedon cut. And look, I was one of the biggest people that complained when I heard that Ben Affleck was cast as Batman. I was like, that's blasphemy. But after watching the movie, he actually was not bad as Batman. Not my favorite. I still prefer, Christian Bale and Michael Keaton. But I will say this: Ben Affleck was worthy of getting the role, and he did a good job in the movie. So did Henry Cavill, who I really enjoy in Tudors and the Wicker or the Witcher. I've seen some of his work in the past, and he's gotten a lot better since he did Hellraiser, which was a kind of a disaster in itself. So, I really do enjoy the fact that he has grown into this part, and I hope that the studio does give him another chance to Men of Steel too. And with that said, is there anything in the movie that you didn't like though?
Not much, no. What I really didn't like more is just my opinion towards it. The more I've learned about this, the more I actually really feel bad about how hard I was on the Snyder Cut idea. I've learned more about, it wasn't like a studio or an interference or fighting type thing with Zack
Yeah,
Snyder. He had family issues and things that were going on, very, very
right.
sad things that made him step away from the project. So it wasn't even necessary that they didn't like his vision that, forced him away from it. So the more I learn about that, the more I do feel kind of bad about being so hard on it. It sounds like we both had to kind of reevaluate some of our opinions on some of the
Yeah,
things we consider.
I'm 100% with you, and I think a lot of well, not a lot, but some of the issues that might have been there with the assembly cut, because I know that Warner Brothers wasn't too happy when they got the initial assembly cut for this movie. I think might have been because of the personal issues he was having, so he kind of left it a little bit messy. And I don't want to get into too much of the what happened because it's very personal. And our condolences to Zack Snyder for what he went through. But I tell you what, once he got in there, and I know he got a huge budget from AT&T and Warner Brothers, it was like around 80 million to complete this thing, and the budget definitely went a long way. Now, I did have issues with some of the storyline, like the mother box idea, and some of the things kind of like were a little iffy. But I will say that once you watch the entire cut, I agree. I mean, I was a little too hard on this entire Snyder cut thing, and like I said, I eat crow, man, and I don't mind admitting to it. And this is one of those times where I do believe that there may be room for this on HBO Max, and there's room for everything. Now we have the multiverse. You have different alterations and different universes, and we have Matt Reeves Batman coming out soon, and we have TV Superman. So everybody has a chance to play in their own play field and in their own playground. And for the fans of Zack Snyder, I'm sure you agree, Scorpio. This is a perfect thing for them to have on HBO Max going forward if they want to continue. Now, do you think they're going to continue this? Because I'm 50-50 on this. I mean, I've heard both ends of the spectrum where they might continue, they might not. What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't really seen one thing out there that makes me believe they're actually going to continue with this. I think they've already taken too many steps in other directions. Well,
Mm,
which is a shame. 'Cause, we mentioned some of the differences here. I feel so bad for non-superhero fans who watch the
yeah,
original Justice League version. Like you mentioned, the mother box ideas, like so much of the DC comic stuff. If you weren't a big fan of it before, when you watched Justice League, it made no sense whatsoever.
right.
And then actually expanding on it now in this version, I think was a little better. Like if you put the time into it, a lot of it made a lot more sense this
Yeah.
time around.
I still don't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, though. I mean, that to me is the worst casting in movie history, or at least top five. I mean, there's probably been a couple of worse castings, but Jesse, if they would have cast him as Jimmy Olsen, I think would have been excellent casting. But we all can't have what we want in life. That's the way things are. So, I mean, I give the movie out of a 5-star rating. I give it 3.5. What's your take on that?
I tend to go by letter grades. I'm looking at like a solid A here. Maybe a
Oh,
couple things that hold it back for me, like a true A plus. But I think this is really, really worth the time.
well, if I had to go on alphabet scale there, I'd probably give it like a B minus, which is really good for me. Anybody who knows me knows that a B minus for one of these Zack Snyder films in the superhero genre is pretty good. I think the only movie that I've reviewed of his that got an A was 300, and Watchmen was very close. I gave it an A minus. I really enjoyed Watchmen, especially the comedian death. in the beginning. I thought it was excellently shot. One thing about Zack Snyder, and I know that you definitely will agree with this, he has a tremendous eye for cinematography and for getting the right shot and making it look really comic booky, and not in a like cheesy Batman Forever, Batman or Robin type of way neither. Like it feels like you're really living in the comic book, which I think it's pretty well done, especially in something like this where it's a 4 hour cut, so you really get to like you know really immerse yourself in the overall product. So you give it an A plus, you said, or an
More
A?
or less an A. More or less an A.
All right, well that's pretty good. I give it a B minus. So there we go. That's our review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut, the famous Snyder Cut. Ah. Now, our next movie we're going to talk about is one that I actually have been looking forward to for a very long time. I know Scorpio here is going to really enjoy this clip.
It's Godzilla.
That's what I call a good old-fashioned monster mash.
Yes.
So, Godzilla versus Kong. If you're looking for like a movie with a coherent storyline, maybe not your first go-to. Starting with some negatives here, I think it's real easy. If you're the kind of person that picks apart the internal logic of a movie, this one's gonna drive you nuts. And we're not talking about just like little things. There's all these things they just kind of forget about. So the movie can happen. Like, hey, we're on this boat, but we have to stop moving, or Godzilla will realize we're alive again. We're not playing dead until we don't have to anymore. Or you need a giant spaceship to get to the center of the Earth until you don't have to anymore. There's a lot of things that would drive that kind of person nuts. I don't want to come off as too easy of a grader, but I think something like this also does what it says on the tin: Godzilla versus Kong. If you're able to shut your brain off and not be too movie snob about it, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this. I mean, come on, Godzilla and Kong, they're literally like, Kong is fighting with a giant spear with like a Godzilla tail as his weapon, and he's like supercharging it with his breath so they can fight a giant robot Godzilla. One of my biggest real negatives there, definitely not enough Mecha Godzilla. That concept as a kid always amused me. Again, lowbrow stuff. You just robot Godzilla is a cool idea. Something like that you want to see a little more of. But if you just want to watch some monsters bash his brains out, you've come to the right place.
I have to agree 100%. This is going to be probably one of the few shows where we agree, I think, on most of these movies. But I am with you 100% on this one. I really enjoyed this movie a great deal. It actually reminded me of my late friend Dennis Crenshaw, who was the Hollow Earth Insider, who passed away earlier this year. And he always was talking about Hollow Earth. And I think he would have loved this movie because it really deals with a subject that he was always into. And I love the fact that we got to see where Godzilla and King Kong and the origins, and they really dealt with not just the fighting between the two monsters, but when you see Kong in his initial environment, you really see the character almost like a human being, and it's very uplifting to see the fact that he reacts in almost a humane way at certain times, even though he is a monster. The fighting sequences are brilliantly shot considering the size of these monsters. But what I do like is it's better than the last Kong movie that came out. It's probably the best American made Kong flick. Uh, Kong flick. Anyway, it's probably the best one I've seen of all of them. And the visuals on this thing is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the color spectrum, the way they show the inner Earth, they really go all out on the visuals on this thing. And CGI is something we've seen plenty of over the last 30 years. It's gotten better and better and better. But we've seen a lot of CGI now, and they really did a nice job on the side. I'm pretty sure that you agree that the CGI was just like it was almost out of this world, even though it was in this world, inside the world. But it almost felt like otherworldly. They really did a nice job on that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie. It's really very pretty.
Yeah.
All the color schemes, the lighting, and everything,
Hmm.
that all looked really great. I appreciate that they went full frontal with it too.
Yes.
I don't.
It's true that.
Look,
Yeah,
the movie.
Godzilla had no shame,
No, not at all, not at all. The movie
and
probably
neither
had
did
more
Kong.
plot. Yes, it's just nothing. I just leave it all out on the table. Just go full on crazy with it. That's what I appreciate out of this movie. It probably had a little more plot actually than I thought it was
Yeah.
going to, but look, I don't need that out of this. I don't want this movie being nominated for too many Academy Awards. You don't need actors like Bryan Cranston in it. It doesn't need any big speeches or monologues. I don't need to care about the human characters for this. I really don't. It's a popcorn movie to me. That's what I wanted out of it.
And it's funny you say that because that's one of the things that I really believe dragged down the last Kong movie and the last Godzilla movie. They tried a little too hard to tell, a grand story, and it just fell apart 20, 30 minutes in. This one was more right into, like, what was happening, and really showcased the action as the main and most important part. The cast was really good, but at the same time they didn't really, like, spend too much time overdeveloping the characters. They just went right with the monsters because at the end of the day, this is a monster flick, and I like the fact that when they're fighting, it really has like that throwback to the old Godzilla monster movies, the old Kong monster movies, but with a whole lot better looking visuals because back then it was like guys in rubber suits and little miniature buildings and stuff. We don't have to have that worry anymore. Again, with CGI, you can do all kinds of amazing things. And the cast. I mean, what was your thoughts on the cast on this thing? You thought that, like, at least they did a pretty good job on the flick?
They had their moments, I guess. They had to say a lot of cornball lines and things.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
And they delivered their cornball lines well enough to get us back to the action.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% there. I would give this one, if we're gonna go on the alphabet scale, I'd give it a B. I thought it was really good, and again, yeah, I'm very harsh on these movies. I rarely give A's to monster movies, but this was actually one of my favorite ones, believe it or not, and I give it a solid B. And yourself?
I'd probably give it a higher grade based on getting what you want out of it and also doing what they
Mm,
accomplish. So if you're trying to grade them on what they set out to do, they'd probably get a pretty high grade, but fair is fair. Just grading this as like a movie, look, B minus. B minus, B
oh,
minus monster movie, that's what you want though. That's what you
so
paid for and that's what you get.
I enjoyed it a little bit more than you then, I think.
I think you're a little, all things considered, a little easier on it when it comes to some of the technical aspects or the actual
Yeah.
movie aspects. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this movie.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good movie, and like I said, it surprised me. Because the last two iterations of these two characters I really didn't enjoy at all. And I'm a throwback. I like the old, Japanese Hong Kong monster movies, from the 70s and 80s. And I was not, I was hoping that at least the technology would be better, obviously. But I was hoping that they really captured the essence of those movies, and I think they did. But when they really added the inner Earth, that really got to me because again, it hit me right here, after losing my friend, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie a lot. And I wasn't expecting that because I purposely stayed away from the spoilers. I didn't really follow, the online chatter because that can really corrupt, your overall enjoyment, I think, of these movies personally. So there you go. I give it a B, solid B, and you give it a B minus. So not too far off for the first two flicks. Pretty good. Now the third movie in our list here this week, and that is
The Suicide Squad.
Here's the deal. We fail the mission, you die.
If we find out any information you give us is false, you die.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
What? No.
If you cough without covering your mouth.
Hardly. Although, that isn't an open invitation for you to cough without covering your mouth.
And now in this era, this day and age of endless sequels, reboots, remakes, I don't think it's unfair at all to review movies a little bit by comparing them to other movies. Like you said, this is at least the second Suicide Squad movie, the third Harley Quinn movie, technically. So comparing this to at least the first Suicide Squad movie, I think I actually did like the first one a little bit better,
Mm.
actually. But it also depends what you want out of it. This is probably a much better Suicide Squad movie. The first movie was probably more of a better, like, DC movie, DC action movie. And your first one, you had, the Batman in there, the Batman Joke interactions, the Batman Deadshot interactions. And I thought a lot of this stuff was actually really, really good. I'm almost ashamed they couldn't follow up on some of that a little bit more. But the Suicide Squad themselves get lost in the first movie a little bit, and they're a little more, color by number, paint by number superhero movie. Whereas this one, you definitely see the director's influence a lot more. This feels like one of his movies. And I think, again, you kind of get what you pay for here. That you should get what you're looking for here. When you think of the Suicide Squad, especially if you're a fan of the comics, you're expecting some more off the wall characters. You're expecting a lot more violence. And you're going to get that here.
I have to agree. You definitely do get a lot of violence. The one character I loved was the Weasel, because it reminded me of Pauly Shore. Weasel. But I didn't enjoy the movie a whole lot. I think it had parts that I did like, but it felt too much like they were trying a little too hard to be like Suicide Squad means Guardians of the Galaxy when it comes to, like, the way they mix the humor, because it's a James Gunn movie. So I think because of that, kind of took away the enjoyment a little bit. I do like Harley Quinn. I think that the Margot, what's her name? I always lose her name.
Oh, Margot
Um,
Robbie?
Margot Robbie, yeah. Her last name always escapes me for some reason. But I thought she is, perfectly cast as Harley Quinn. And she is really the best part of the movie. Other than that, there's some parts that I really didn't enjoy. It wouldn't be a movie that I repeat a whole lot. Didn't like John Cena as Peacemaker, even though I know he's going to come back and he's doing his own Peacemaker movie. It was the way he plays the character is a little too cheesy for my take, even though it is a cheesy character. But I think they're trying to make him more like a Shazam type of, like, comedic type of character, and it just that I don't like his acting too much. The overall cast, it was okay, but I mean, when I say that I like the Weasel the best, that's not good because he's barely in the movie. I mean, and I don't want to give spoilers because we're not into too many spoilers on these review shows. But I think the Weasel being my favorite character is troubling for me on this one. Other than that, some aspects were better. I really didn't like the original Suicide Squad at all. I didn't like Will Smith or any of the actors in it for those roles. Something against the actors themselves, I just didn't like them in those parts. This one had a little bit better of a cast. Pete Davidson is in it briefly, and the Weasel again very briefly, and those are probably like the funniest characters in the movie. Other than that, the action sequences were kind of lame. It just felt a little too rushed, and I didn't enjoy quite as much. But I'll say this: it was better than the first. I'll give it that much. Personally, I give it a C minus, which is probably the lowest grade I'd give any of the movies. That is the lowest grade I've given any movie this week. What are your thoughts? What would you grade this one?
I'll go B. Fun but forgettable would be my
Mm.
overall here.
Would
Let,
you
let,
watch it? Does that repeat viewing for you though?
yeah, I'm not rushing to see it again. I think I'll watch it at least once more someday. 'Cause, mostly for the places where I disagree with you on. I thought the action
Mm.
was a lot of fun. The big surprise there with one of the main, more violent action scenes. You find out at the end they don't know exactly who they're fighting. That's not going to surprise you the same way the first time, but it was a lot of fun. And I actually, despite myself, enjoyed John Cena in this. Didn't like him
Mm.
in the Fast and Furious movie too much. Was not really to see another wrestler turned actor. Wasn't too excited for that, but he had a deadpan delivery of his lines. If you need him to say some cornball crap and wear a colorful costume, he's got the career. He's got the resume. He can do that. I thought he pulled it off well enough for this.
Well, I'm not a big John Cena fan, and he can't see me saying that because he's too rich and famous, so he'll never probably see me. But it is what it is. I know they're going to push the Peacemaker movie pretty heavily now this upcoming year, and we'll see where his career takes off and where this character takes off. I don't know if James Gunn is going to come back. Have you heard anything about him coming back? Because I haven't really heard if he's going to do another one, or this might be just one and gone.
Not one I followed the chatter on too much. I think the Suicide Squad they still want to keep trying to make happen. Also, I think their bigger issue, that the thing that comes out of this movie, is what they're going to do about Harley Quinn. They're
Yeah,
trying so
yeah,
hard to make Harley Quinn happen. This is, you can see why Harley Quinn's one of the most popular characters.
yeah,
Harley
yeah,
Quinn, I think, has almost gotten too popular for her own good. They've turned her into anti-hero, into basically hero.
yeah,
One of my pet peeves. I hate when a villain gets too popular and they have to kind of start nicing them up and they start taking those steps there. So it's already happening to Harley Quinn, but if you look at the movies she's been in so far, not all that successful really, to tell the
yeah,
truth. And even in this one, they basically try and give Harley Quinn like a mini movie in the middle of
yeah.
it, where all of a sudden the action kind of stops. It becomes like just about her doing like the side quest. So they're trying really hard to make Harley Quinn happen, and I can see why, but I don't think they're having as good of luck with it as they want.
Did you enjoy the Birds of Prey movie that she was in?
Not so much, no. Well, they're
Yeah,
kind of fun. Again, I'm probably a little easier on it than some other people. It had fun parts. I didn't think my time was wasted, but probably the least one. I'd probably go back and watch it was on Suicide Squad before I'd watch Birds of Prey again.
yeah, yeah. I really didn't like that movie, which is a shame because I enjoy her as Harley Quinn. But if for whatever reason, and while she is really perfectly cast, I think for the role, they still have kind of like I think it had a lot of missteps with the characterization and the way they write the character. And I think you're right; they're trying to nice her up a little bit too much. And she's supposed to be a little bit more of like just evil, like wicked, while being playful and clownish. But I think they're trying to a little bit too much to make her into like a America's sweetheart, and this just
Hmm.
doesn't work for the character, which is the one real drawback I think from this movie. Considering how important this was going forward for not only the character but for all these characters, because they're trying to world build here with the Suicide Squad and probably branch out and give individual like movies like Peacemaker's getting his own movie. She already had kind of her own thing, but I don't know where they're going to go after this one now. Myself, like I said, I'm very iffy if I will ever watch this again. It might be something that I might watch it one day when I'm really bored and drunk. Not sure, but I really just I don't think it's worth repeating. So it's one of those things where it's might be just a one and done for me, and I am looking forward to seeing what James Gunn does with Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or 3.5, whatever they're going to call it, because he always comes up with goofy names for that. But I think he's better suited for that galaxy than he is for this galaxy. So there you go.
If I could, let's please both go ahead and dedicate this one to Mr. Dennis Crenshaw. I couldn't help but think of him during all the Hollow scenes during the Godzilla Kong movie as well. Really lucky
Yeah.
to have known that man. This one's for you, Dennis.
Yeah, and you and I go a long way, Scorpio. We've been friends for a long time, and I know that you were there from the beginning when I met Dennis, and he was a big part of our baby steps when it came to doing podcasting, and we're all gonna miss him. So wherever he's at right now, I know he's probably looking at some movies of the Inner Earth, or maybe he is somewhere like in the Tesseract, like in the Christopher Nolan Interstellar movie, where the fourth dimension, and he's looking at all time and space, and he's like, I knew it. There is an Inner Earth.
I
Much love
guarantee.
to
Oh,
Dennis.
sorry, we got. No, I guarantee you, wherever he is right now, he's still looking for answers.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. With that said, everybody, thank you for joining the show. And once again, like I said earlier, please hit the subscribe button, give us a big old thumbs up, and notification. It's really important that way you're notified when we come up with more videos like this. And whatever you do, please don't forget to comment below. Thank you all for joining us. Till next time, take care, everybody. Damn good show.